A weathered cowboy never expected that one act of kindness would change his life forever. When he discovered an Apache tribe on the edge of starvation, he gave away nearly everything he had to keep them alive. At sunrise, the Apache chief stepped forward and offered him something no amount of gold could ever buy. What the cowboy chose next would become a legend that neither side would ever forget. The morning sun rose over the open plains as a lone cowboy guided his faithful horse along a narrow trail that stretched toward the distant hills. The air was cool, and the silence of the frontier seemed deeper than usual. He had just finished delivering a small herd of cattle to a nearby settlement and was eager to return to his modest ranch before the changing season brought colder days. His saddlebags carried only enough food and supplies to last the trip home. Every meal mattered, and every mile demanded careful planning. As he rode across the wide landscape, he noticed that something did not feel right. The streams that usually echoed with birds were strangely quiet. Fresh animal tracks were almost impossible to find. Even the wind seemed to carry a sense of uneasiness through the tall grass. The cowboy slowed his horse when he spotted faint footprints crossing the trail. They were not the tracks of travelers heading toward a town. Instead, they wandered toward a grove of cottonwood trees beside a shallow river. Curiosity urged him forward. Beyond the trees, he found a small Apache village hidden from the open plains. The sight before him stopped him where he stood. Families moved slowly between simple shelters. Elders sat quietly beneath the shade, their faces marked by exhaustion. Mothers tried to comfort hungry children with gentle words, even though there was little food left to offer. No one spoke loudly. The entire village carried the heavy weight of worry. An older man stepped forward with calm dignity. His posture reflected quiet strength despite the hardship surrounding him. Without raising his voice, he welcomed the stranger with respect. The cowboy looked around once more, realizing this was not a place preparing for conflict. It was a community struggling simply to survive. His hand rested on the small bag of food hanging from his saddle. It was everything he needed for the long journey home. Yet as he looked into the hopeful faces before him, he understood that the next decision he made could change far more than his own future. The cowboy remained silent for a long moment as he looked from one face to another. He thought about the long ride back to his ranch and the miles of empty country that still lay ahead. The food in his saddlebags had been packed with care. It was meant to keep him strong until he reached home. Giving it away would leave him with very little. He took a slow breath, untied the bags from his saddle, and carried them to the center of the village. Without making a speech or expecting praise, he opened the bags and began placing dried meat, beans, flour, and a few pieces of fruit on a clean blanket. The families watched in quiet surprise. The chief stepped forward with gratitude in his eyes. "You have brought hope when hope was almost gone," he said softly. The cowboy smiled. "Food belongs where it is needed most." Soon everyone worked together. Some of the younger men gathered firewood while others fetched fresh water from the nearby river. The cowboy joined them without hesitation. He helped repair damaged shelters using fallen branches and strong rope from his saddle. Before long, cooking fires were burning again, and the comforting smell of warm bread filled the cool evening air. Over the next 2 days, the cowboy stayed with the village. Each morning he searched the surrounding hills for wild berries and edible plants. He also caught fish from the river and taught a few of the younger villagers a simple way to weave stronger fishing lines from natural fibers. Every small success lifted the spirits of the people. During the evenings, he sat beside the chief and listened to stories about the land. The chief explained that months of dry weather had driven away much of the wildlife. Harvests had failed, and nearby trading routes had become quiet. The tribe had survived many hardships before, but this season had tested even the strongest families. The cowboy realized that the people before him were no different from the neighbors he had known all his life. They cared for their children, respected their elders, and dreamed of better days. On the third evening, as the sun disappeared behind the distant hills, the chief walked beside the cowboy to the edge of the village. "You have given us more than food," the chief said. "You have reminded our people that kindness still lives in this world." The cowboy nodded politely and prepared to leave at first light. Just before they parted, the chief placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Please return at sunrise," he said with a warm smile. "There is something that belongs in your hands, and it cannot wait another day." The first light of dawn spread across the valley as the cowboy guided his horse back toward the Apache village. A gentle mist rested over the river, and the morning air carried a peaceful stillness. As he approached, he noticed the entire village gathered near a large cottonwood tree. The chief stood at the front beside several respected elders. Men, women, and children formed a quiet circle, their faces filled with gratitude. The cowboy stepped down from his horse and greeted them with a humble smile. The chief walked forward carrying a carefully wrapped bundle made from soft woven cloth. He held it with both hands before offering it to the cowboy. "You came here as a stranger," the chief said. "You leave as a trusted friend." The cowboy slowly unfolded the cloth. Inside was a beautifully crafted leather map, marked by hand with rivers, hidden springs, fertile valleys, and safe mountain trails. Every mark reflected generations of knowledge carefully protected by the tribe. The cowboy looked up in surprise. "I cannot accept something so valuable," he replied. The chief smiled warmly. "This map is more than a guide across the land," he said. "It is a sign of our trust. Gold can be counted. Horses can be replaced. But trust must be earned." The elders nodded in agreement, knowing how rare such a gift truly was. The cowboy carefully wrapped the map once again and held it close to his heart. He understood that its greatest value was not the paths it revealed, but the friendship it represented. "I will honor this gift," he promised. "I will use its knowledge with wisdom, and I will always remember the kindness your people have shown me." As the morning sun climbed higher above the hills, the chief and the cowboy shook hands. In that simple moment, two people from different worlds proved that respect and compassion could build a bond stronger than fear, leaving behind a story that would be remembered for many years. Several months passed, and the changing seasons brought fresh challenges to the frontier. The cowboy returned to his ranch and quietly put the chief's gift to good use. The hand-drawn map led him to reliable springs that continued to flow even during dry weeks. It also revealed safe trails through the hills that saved long days of travel. He never treated the map as a way to gain wealth. Instead, he used its knowledge to help others. When neighboring ranchers struggled to find water for their cattle, he guided them to places where they could fill their barrels without disturbing the land. Families traveling across the plains also found safe routes because of his advice. The cowboy carefully protected the locations the chief had asked him to keep private. Those places held deep meaning for the Apache people, and he respected that promise without question. One cool autumn evening, several riders appeared near his ranch just as the sun dipped below the horizon. At their head was the Apache chief, smiling warmly. The visitors carried sacks of seeds, sturdy farming tools, and beautifully crafted blankets made by the women of the village. The chief stepped down from his horse and looked around the growing ranch with pride. "You shared your future with us," he said. "Today, we share ours with you." The cowboy welcomed every guest as family, knowing their friendship had become the greatest treasure either of them could ever possess. Years passed, but the story of the cowboy and the Apache tribe never faded from the memories of those who lived on the frontier. Travelers often stopped at the cowboy's ranch, where they were always welcomed with a warm meal, fresh water, and a place to rest before continuing their journey. Many wondered why his home was known for such generosity, but the cowboy never spoke of his kindness as something unusual. He simply believed that helping others was the right thing to do. Each season, the friendship between the ranch and the Apache village grew stronger. They exchanged seeds, shared farming ideas, and worked together during difficult times. Children from both communities grew up seeing respect instead of fear, learning that trust could be built through honest actions. One peaceful evening, the aging chief visited the ranch once more. The two old friends sat beneath the wide open sky, watching the sun settle beyond the distant hills. The chief smiled and said, "When you first came to our village, you believed you were giving us your last supplies. What you truly gave us was hope. Hope gave us strength, and strength gave us a future." The cowboy looked across the land that had brought them together and gently nodded. "And you gave me something greater than any map," he replied. "You showed me that the richest life is built through friendship, respect, and keeping your word." As darkness quietly covered the plains, both men understood that their greatest legacy was not measured by land or possessions. It was measured by the lives they had touched. Their story continued to inspire every traveler who heard it, proving that one act of compassion can grow into a lifetime of trust, leaving behind a legacy that never fades. As the sun disappeared beyond the endless frontier, the story of the cowboy and the Apache tribe became more than just a memory. It became a reminder that the greatest treasures in life are not measured by money or possessions. They are found in kindness, trust, and the courage to help someone when they need it most. Thank you for joining us on this journey across the Old West. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more original Western stories filled with unforgettable characters, meaningful journeys, and timeless lessons. Share this story with someone who believes that one act of compassion can change a life. We would also love to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done if you had been the cowboy? Would you have shared your last supplies with complete strangers? Your thoughts and experiences make this community stronger, and we enjoy reading every comment. Until our next adventure, take care of yourself, keep kindness close to your heart, and we will see you again in the next story.